I caught my wife cheating with my friend in the middle of the act. I'm 55 years old and my ex-wife is 50. We were married for 23 years and together for 25 years. Let me give you some background on myself. I grew up as a farm boy in Alberta, Canada, working at my parents' dairy farm. Later, I moved to Ontario to attend university, where I earned a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. After graduation, I returned to Alberta and began working in the oil industry, specifically in automation for large-scale oil processing facilities and drilling operations. The job paid well, allowing me to purchase a house in the city. I was introduced to my ex-wife by a coworker. She worked as an accountant in the finance department of a major retail company. We hit it off right away and started dating, eventually moving in together and getting married after 2 years. During our time in Alberta, we welcomed 2 boys who were just 19 months apart in age. Around the 5th year of our marriage, my ex-wife received a promotion that required us to relocate to the company's headquarters in Ontario. I decided to resign from my job and we made the move together. We rented out our Alberta house while purchasing a new one in Ontario. I found a new job specializing in automation for manufacturing facilities. Meanwhile, my ex-wife quickly climbed the corporate ladder and is now a high-level manager in the same company. We were both financially successful and enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle, going on frequent family vacations, regularly upgrading our cars, and paying off our house loan quickly, leaving us virtually debt-free. Our social life was vibrant, with many connections from our university days and my wife's childhood. However, in 2016, everything took a turn for the worse. I was unexpectedly laid off from my job, received a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, and returned home early one day after running errands only to discover that my wife was having an affair with my best friend and college roommate. I caught them in the act, and it was a devastating blow. He was part of our friend circle, tall, handsome, and had a history of infidelity from his previous marriage. He fit the archetype of a player. She pleaded and uttered the same cliched lines they all do. How she still loves me, how it was a terrible mistake, and how we can work through it because our marriage is her top priority, and all that blah, blah, blah. I couldn't fathom the idea of reconciling, constantly living as a suspicious guard, obsessively searching for signs of betrayal in our relationship. I know my self-worth, so I made the decision to kick her out of the house and initiate divorce proceedings. I reached out to our kids who were in university at the time and informed them about their mother's actions. This revelation strained their relationship with her, although she argued that my approach was unnecessary and petty. I also contacted our mutual friends to share the truth, and to my surprise, most of them were already aware of the affair. One even revealed that it had been going on for 3 years. I felt completely blindsided, perhaps because I was naive and had complete trust in my then-wife. Upon learning this, I chose to go no contact with my ex, allowing all communication to be handled through my lawyer. I severed ties with them all, never speaking to them again. During that period, I experienced depression, uncontrollable rage, and had difficulties sleeping and eating. It was the most excruciating pain I had ever experienced, and I never want to go through it again. The memories haunt me in my nightmares at times. However, one day I realized that I couldn't continue feeling sorry for myself. I decided to find ways to keep my mind occupied. I took up jogging and exercising, discovered the joy of cooking as a hobby, and embarked on learning how to play the guitar. These activities served as distractions from the painful memories. Playing the guitar in particular was a tremendous help. It was challenging to master, requiring hours of practice, but it kept me from dwelling on the past. One of the first songs I learned on the guitar was The Sound Of by Jan Arden. It's a powerful song about recovery that I highly recommend. Another thing that brought me solace was getting a Rottweiler puppy, the same breed we had on the farm when I was younger. My ex never liked pets, so we never had one before. Taking care of the puppy became a source of comfort and distraction for me. The responsibility of caring for it gave me a sense of purpose during the tough times. As for the divorce, we sold the house and split the equity, divided the money in our savings account. Fortunately, our retirement savings were equal, so there was no need to divide them. After the divorce, I returned to Alberta where I had a house and started my own successful consulting business. Even in the midst of a recession, I've managed to thrive. I sold my house and purchased a new one in Canmore, nestled at the base of the majestic Rockies. Now I have the beautiful woods as my backyard. I've never been much of a social media person, so it was effortless to not follow my ex-wife or be curious about her life. I don't even have a Facebook profile. In 2018, I returned to Ontario for my son's graduation, and coincidentally ran into my ex there. She asked if we could meet up for coffee to catch up since I was in town. I simply replied that I'd rather be in hell with better company and proceeded to ignore her for the remainder of the ceremony. Both of my sons have since relocated to Alberta and now live just 40 minutes away from me. My ex-wife was undoubtedly surprised by the distance between us. With Ontario being a 4-hour plane ride or a grueling 36-hour car journey away, it's been challenging for her to visit the kids. Despite the positive aspects of my life, not everything is as rosy as it seems. I've been unable to enter into another relationship. Trust issues have plagued me, and I've come to the conclusion that it wouldn't be fair to my partner. As a result, I made the decision to stop dating altogether. I may be alone, but I don't feel lonely. I have found genuine happiness in my life, even without someone to share it with. To all of you in this sub, my heart goes out to you and what you're going through. I can testify that it does get better. And even if you find yourself alone like me, it's far better than living with a cheater and the lingering presence of their betrayal. Update. Hey there, folks. I wanted to reach out this time to seek some advice. Last Sunday, I was helping my youngest son move a sofa he bought from IKEA to his place using my truck. During our conversation, he mentioned that his mom, my ex-wife, wanted to talk to me. Now, my sons are well aware that they shouldn't share my number with her, so they passed along the message. It's been quite some time since I last spoke to her, specifically since my youngest son's college graduation. And honestly, I never had any intention of speaking to her again. But I must admit, her request piqued my curiosity. Why now, after all this time? Does she genuinely want to apologize? Or is it just about clearing her own conscience? So I've been pondering over the idea of giving her a call while Outside by Stain keeps playing in my head for some reason. Update. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your advice. Your comments truly help me clear my head. Following your recommendations, I approached my youngest son and asked for my ex-wife's email address. I created a new Yahoo Mail account specifically for this purpose and reached out to her to find out what she wanted. She responded with an email. After exchanging the usual pleasantries, she delivered the unexpected news that my ex-best friend had passed away from a heart attack last month. In response, I composed the following message to her last night. Dear Satan's spawn, I'm at a loss for words, except maybe Mazel Tov. Right now, my heart is already grieving for the recent loss of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, so I find it hard to mourn for him. I found out my wife has been having a secret affair for 1 year, so I got revenge on her. Oh boy, she didn't see that coming. Back in 2008, during my time in school, I crossed paths with this incredibly awesome girl. Let's call her CR. I was 21 years old and she was on the verge of turning 19. And together, we experienced the feeling of love for the very first time. We were attending a community college, pursuing different paths. I was into theater design while she was studying education. Despite living about 30 minutes apart, the distance was merely a minor inconvenience as we made sure to spend every available moment together between classes. Now that I reflect on it, that bit of distance between us actually had its perks. It allowed us to concentrate on our studies and take care of ourselves when we were apart. Plus, the anticipation of visiting each other's homes made those moments all the more meaningful. In 2009, CR completed her associate's degree and made the decision to transfer to a state school to pursue her degree in early childhood special education. Despite the distance, which was just a short train ride away, I made it a point to spend 1 or 2 weekends a month with her. Then, on Valentine's Day 2010, I got down on one knee and proposed to her. I wasn't really cut out for school, so in May of that year, I made the decision to enlist in the USAF. Suddenly, I found myself being stationed in a place that neither of us had ever expected to visit, and it was halfway across the country. But just like before, we were determined not to let distance stand in our way. It's important to mention that her mom was not a fan of mine. I have no idea why, but she was always incredibly loud, rude, annoying, and disrespectful. She was from the city, while her family had been farmers on the land since the 1870s, so maybe that played a role in her animosity. For the purposes of this story, let's refer to her as Evil Bitch, or EB for short. Another important detail to note is that I have a fantastic memory, and this will come into play later on in the story. Moving on to my military experience, I had a 2-week break between my training and being deployed to my first and only duty station. It so happened that this break fell during the Christmas and New Year holidays. Although we were engaged, we hadn't really discussed the specifics of getting married. She preferred a small ceremony with just her family and cousins, while I was perfectly fine with a courthouse wedding to keep things simple. I don't want to give the impression that I was pressuring her into it, but in my mind, getting married meant I would be eligible for a full monthly housing allowance, which would be helpful since I would soon be living in the barracks. I planned to save the allowance to have a proper wedding ceremony when we had more time, maybe in a year or two. In the end, we decided to get married secretly without informing anyone, as we knew our families would be upset about not being involved. The plan was to have a later fake wedding ceremony where both our families and friends would be included. However, things didn't go as planned. When it turned out that I couldn't collect the housing allowance because I was living in barracks, the military authorities discovered my marriage 6 months later and forced me to move out and find a house on base. Despite this, we didn't tie the knot during my home leave, and instead embarked on a cross-country journey via Amtrak train. If you have the time, I highly recommend experiencing a cross-country train trip. The first opportunity we had to reunite was during her spring break in early March. It was then that CR and I decided to elope and got married at a courthouse. We spent the following days enjoying each other's company, just like any young married couple would. In June, I returned home for a couple of weeks, and that's when things took a turn. During that time, my wife volunteered as a counselor for a summer camp organized by Easter Seals, which caters to special needs kids. I dropped her off at the camp after celebrating her birthday together, and little did I know it would be the last time I saw her that summer. Throughout the rest of the summer, it was a hit or miss trying to get in touch with her. She was fully dedicated to her role, being on the clock 24 hours a day for 5 days a week. Taking care of those kids, I understood and respected her commitment. Once she returned to school in the fall, though, I noticed her growing distant. She would often use the excuse of her phone randomly dying at strangely predictable times every week. However, she did fly out to spend Christmas with me in our new, albeit modest, duplex. During that time, everything felt amazing, just like before. But after Christmas, she reverted back to her reclusive ways from the previous semester. Let's jump ahead to May 2012. I took a whole month of leave to fly back home for her graduation and to help her move in with me. But when I saw her, she seemed like a completely different person. Every interaction with CR felt forced and insincere, and looking back, I should have realized something was seriously wrong. She had arranged these so-called mock interviews with a couple of grade schools near her hometown, and I genuinely believed she was just trying to gain interview experience. Boy, was I naive. As I started to catch on to how determined she was to secure a job in our home state, she broke down in tears, making it seem like I was forcing her to choose between me and her career. Naturally, I wanted to prioritize our marriage above all else. I went back to base alone, feeling completely shattered. A couple of weeks later, I couldn't take it anymore and confronted her, demanding to know what the hell was going on. That's when she confessed to having fallen in love with one of her fellow camp counselors and carrying on the affair for about 9 months. She claimed she wanted to tell me but didn't know when, feeding me that usual, too guilty to tie your own shoes, bullshit. And then, she actually expected me to just walk away from our relationship right then and there. No way. I fought tooth and nail to hold us together for 2 more months before finally filing for divorce. I'll spare you the sappy details. But the divorce was officially filed in late August and became final in December, as there was a mandatory 90-day waiting period in my state. Experiencing the agony of that one-sided relationship is something I wouldn't wish upon anyone unless they truly deserved it. It turns out that E.B., my soon-to-be ex's mother, whispered all sorts of lies to her, falsely claiming that I joined the military to escape from her. Can you believe that? And to make matters worse, she had the audacity to blame me for all the crying and misery her oldest child was going through. My ex never admitted who was behind all the blame, but I had been so close to her dad and siblings that it's hard to imagine they would suspect me. However, E.B. was incredibly manipulative, and by Halloween, they had all turned against me. That was the breaking point for me. I was on the verge of ending myself, and my anxiety attacks were hitting me almost daily. I was utterly miserable, tired of being deceived, tired of the slander, tired of being painted as the villain when I was the one who had been attacked in this situation. I began by sending text messages to her brothers and sister, revealing the truth. "Hey, I'm actually your brother-in-law. Nice to know that we don't keep secrets, right?" CR exploded with anger, but that was only the beginning. I took matters into my own hands and wrote an extensive 3,000-word letter detailing every single aspect I could remember about what had transpired. Our marriage, including copies of the marriage license and certificate, our plans for the future, and how I was the only one fulfilling our expectations. I also included information about where she had met the man she was cheating on me with, his name, address, phone number, the name of the camp counselor, so CR would find it harder to deny. Additionally, I shared other information she had made me keep secret from them. I sent copies of this letter to every member of her extended family, at least those I had addresses for, her roommates, the summer camp she worked at, professors she had mentioned in past conversations, and even the principal of the school where she ended up teaching. The aftermath of my actions was nothing short of catastrophic. Her deeply religious Catholic family practically disowned her. Her reputation at her previous school was irreparably damaged, and the tension at her new job became so intense that CR was forced to resign before the Christmas break began. As for me, finally unburdening myself from those secrets was an incredibly cathartic experience, one that brought me a sense of relief like never before.